So I've been looking through my bookshelves, and does anyone buy books here? Some of you buy books, some of you do. Have you ever bought a book that you never read? Yeah. So it looks good, right? For me, it's often like one of those books that you see at a workshop or somebody says, oh, you should really get that. And then you get it, and then you go, oh, yeah, I'm going to read that. And then it kind of sits on a desk for a while, and after it gets to a desk, it kind of gets to like someplace else, and then it gets to maybe the shelf. And so that's what's happened to some of these. These are all self-help books. Does anyone read self-help books? I do. So, well, kind of. You can't really tell by some of you. The Bible. Yeah, the Bible. Okay, gotcha. Whew. All right, so, the Bible. That I thumb through a lot more often. But these books, I bought them with good intentions, and some of them I read, but some of them I haven't. But they're let's see, Why Nobody Wants to Go to Church Anymore. Yeah, that's a good one. Renovate or Die. Yeah. One size doesn't fit all, when better isn't enough. The autopsy of a deceased church, very thin. Let's see, restoring the soul of a church. Good to great in God's eyes. You know that this is November, so I'm going to talk about money, so it's beyond the collection plate. Let's see, so these are all books that they tell you that, a lot of people, who's they? I look at them and read a couple pages, and you might find something in there, but I also read things that aren't necessarily geared to just congregational life. I move, The Power of Who, Change or Die, Influence, that hasn't worked so good so far, Move. So there's those. And then I have even gone so far as to go really way out and use media, other than just books like this. So I have my own cassette tapes that I got, accelerated learning techniques, and the new Lead the Field. The new Lead the Field has a lot of dust on the top. Yeah, I don't even have a cassette player anymore, but I still cart these from every church I go, from church to church. So, and some of you are, well, why not get something that you can listen to, like on a CD? So I'm way ahead of you. I have books on CDs, Fix Your Broken Brain, Be Our Guest. There's all kinds of stuff in here. And some I've listened to, some of them I've read, and most of them, I don't remember. You get excited about it, you start, How many of you have had 3-ring binders at your house? Yeah, you go to a workshop, 3-ring binders. The workshop leader goes, you're going to love this. You will go home and you will go through every single page. That's why we painstakingly, and I bring it back and I look at it and it stays on the desk for a while. This is what happens to me. So here's my desk. It goes here for a while first, and then I want to clear off my desk, and then I have one drawer, just one, where I like to clean off my desk every night, so I clean off and it goes into this one drawer, and when this one drawer gets too big that you can't open it or close it anymore, then I have to do stuff with that stuff. So then this goes on the shelf behind me with all the other 3-ring binders, and there it sits until it's time to do something with them. Jerry and Joyce have found a number of 3-ring binders in my garbage can lately, so... Because you just don't do anything with them that much anymore. They're designed to help us get better, right? They're designed to help us to move forward. And if you're anything like me, what happens to me is you start to think, okay, if I could just take one thing away from this, if I could just, one little whatever it is, and I usually can find something. So I'll implement that for a while, and then other stuff just starts to take over, and so you forget about that one thing, and it kind of gets put to the side and then put into the drawer, and then after a while, I forget about that too. And then if someone asks you about it, then you say, oh, well, yeah, I was doing that, but it didn't quite work because, and then you rationalize and say, well, this is because it was this or that or the other thing, and then it just kind of goes from there. We fail. Quite a bit, actually. And I was thinking about God, and God knew, because I believe that God has some pretty cool qualities about God. One of his being all-knowing, omniscient. And so I believe that God knows all things. And so from the very get-go, God knew who I would be. God knew all these books I would buy and not implement. God knew all the workshops I would go to and try a couple of things and do something and then stop. He also knew the times that some of those things actually worked. But if he knew all those things in advance and yet knew that I would fail, what kind of God is that? Jesus, who did not himself sense that he had that equality in God, and yet he was God, took it upon himself to humble himself to be like a servant. And not even just a servant. He humbled himself so much that he went on to death, even death on a cross, so that we could live. There will be a day when his name will indeed be voiced above all names. The scripture tells us that there will be a time when there's not one person who can even stop saying that he is Lord. Jesus says that there will be a time that even the rocks will be able to cry out and sing. But not right this moment. And so, we fail. And God wanted us to know that alongside our failures, he is always there until the end of the age. Always present, always loving, always forgiving. God is there. Once we start to resonate with that a lot more often in our Christian faith, there's another thing that God knocks on our hearts on. And this, I have some contention with God about. Have you ever argued with God? You don't win, but God says this: I'd like you to take one more step. To which I say, are you nuts? That's not a good thing to ask God either. But haven't you seen what has gone on? When I do that, these things don't work. I can't do that. And God says, Randy, I'd like you to take one more step. How? Oh, I know that you think, Randy, that you are in control, but really, I'm right here. And when you take one more step, I will be with you. It will be okay. It will be okay. God invites us to risk. He invites us to go out that extra step. He invites us to come forward just a little bit more, to grow in a place that we have never grown before. And although I despise this phrase, God invites us to break out of our comfort zones and to go in a place where He is leading and assuring us that we're going to be okay. Even if we fall, even if we fail. It's an odd plan if you think about what Jesus did on our behalf. If it was anything that was happening today, Jesus wouldn't go to a cross. No, Jesus would be sweeping the media with all kinds of wonderful phrases and sayings and snappy kind of graphics and all that kind of stuff. And the people would be flocking to see him. And there would be everything that he would say, everybody would hang on to like it was gospel, which it is. He wouldn't go to a cross. We would see that as something, as a failure for us. Why on earth would you go there? In fact, his own disciples asked the question of him, to which he answered, that's how it's going to be, and it will be okay. He told them, in 3 days I will rise again, but they didn't hear, much like we don't hear God saying, there will be a victory. We're concerned with the things that we already know. And even if the things that we already know kind of glop us up in our hearts and we go, yeah, I don't particularly like everything that I'm in right now, but at least I know the crap that I'm in. And I'd rather not try to find something else, because who knows, or God knows what that's going to be like. But God keeps saying, take one more step. Many of you received in the mail, probably yesterday, a letter from the church. If you're like most folks, you see a letter from the church and you go, oh, and you put it to the side. It's from the church, so you don't throw it away right away, right? Yeah, nervous. Does he know? Was there a camera? No. And it's encouraging us as a congregation to take one more step, to take a risk where perhaps you haven't risked before by looking at your financial picture and saying, okay, I would like to support this church a little bit more in the coming year. Not because of anything that I do, but all because of what God can do through us. God has worked in our congregation for more than 114 years. And sure, there are times when we as a congregation haven't lived up to the expectations that are put before us by other folks. There have been times when we as a congregation have failed or have fallen. But I can guarantee you this, God is always there. Always. And doesn't wag God's finger and doesn't belittle us for failing. No, God says, get up. I'm here. Take one more step. One more step. Jesus knew when he gathered his disciples that there would be times when they would fail. And so he wanted to remind them that although the words that he had spoken were important, he wanted them to sense his presence always. And so when he was speaking to his group of people, it wasn't just for that time at Passover. No, what he was inviting them to do was to always remember him. And not just remember, not just think back on the past, but to live forward, to be renewed in him every time they ate bread and every time they drank wine. In a few moments, we will remember these words that many of you have heard over and over again. Words that we call institutional words as we come together for communion. But I invite you on this day to not only remember, to think backward of all the wonderful things that God has done for us, but to be renewed and enliven ourselves in the promises that he says, one more step. Just one.